Welcome to the Finance Geeks, a podcast about real financial planning. If you're into numbers, strategies, and building a great planning business, this is your ultimate geeky hangout.
Welcome to Season 4, Episode 6 of the Finance Geeks podcast. Thanks for joining us. My name is Warren Shute, and I'm joined by...
Paul Cleworth.
That was very smooth, Paul. I like that.
Thanks.
And today we're discussing accumulation to enjoyment, the hardest transition in finance. But before we dive into that stellar of a topic, Paul, what have you been up to?
Been to Portugal for a little mini break, a week away with my family, so that was nice. We were going to go to Abu Dhabi, and we had all the flights booked and the Airbnb booked, but we had to wait to the last minute. It was all cancelled for the obvious reasons. If you don't know why it was cancelled, then living under a rock. But we did manage to get the money back from Etihad, which was good, and then we booked this little holiday in Portugal and went to Albufeira, which is in the Algarve, and it's sort of like the Luton of the Algarve. It's not particularly great, but I know.
Sorry for any listeners.
No, sorry if you live in Luton. I used to live in Bedfordshire. Now I moved to Hertfordshire. I'm up market now. But basically, we managed to find this lovely Airbnb and just travelled around. Went to the coast. Went to IKEA, as you do with children, because it's something to do. Shopping centres, and then
went on holiday. Went to IKEA.
Oh yeah, so you go for the meatballs and chips and stuff. Yeah, it's brilliant fun. That's how sad I am. Okay, let's move on. I did. It was end of tax year, as you know, at the end of March. So we did a lot of work with clients there. I also did all my appraisals and staff bonuses. So everyone got a bonus. Everyone's got an increase in pay. So very lucky working at Tandem. In fact, I'm the lucky one having such great staff work for me. I tell you what I've also been doing. I've been doing cold tub therapy. This morning, I bought one of these ice baths. Taken me 2 or 3 months to put it up inside a little fishing tent. Did a leg workout this morning with Juan, my personal fitness trainer, who's brilliant. And I said, God, don't push me too hard on legs, because the recovery, now that I'm old and nearly 50, takes forever. So I've decided I'll jump in this plunge pool. It was about 7-8 degrees. I've not managed to get it to 3 or 4 degrees with ice yet. And I'm recovering for 10 minutes. It's horrible. You jump in, jump out, get in, eventually man up and sort of sit there for freezing for 10 minutes, get out, and then jumped into the shower to get hot again. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was watching the Masters. You watch the Masters?
Not really.
Okay. Well, for all those golf fans out there, it was particularly good. If you like Rory and you like the Masters,
I do like Rory and I do like the Masters. I watched a lot on YouTube, but not too much.
Yeah. It's quite exciting if you like golf. And then the last thing before I hand over to you, good self, is on the end of March, it was my son's birthday, who's turned 11. Our Rory, named after Rory McIlroy, I think. I can't remember. Could have been Rory Underwood, because my wife likes rugby. We went to Greenwich for his birthday to see the National Maritime Museum, and we went to Hamleys and bought some toys from him. We went to Black Tap, which is sort of like an upmarket McDonald's, if you like. And I think I ate 2,500 calories of burgers and fries and regretted it afterwards. Hence the.
I think you might be
sessions.
under-egging it too. It might even be north of 2,500.
It felt awful afterwards, quite frankly. You should feel good going to these places. Oh yeah, it's brilliant. Burgers and chips and milkshakes. What about yourself, Warren? What have you been up to in the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever you want to say?
So my daughter Bella's traveling, and my wife and my son went out to Singapore and Vietnam to see her, and absolutely fell in love with the place. As you know, my dad's
Singapore
American.
or Vietnam or both?
Both, if I'm honest. The people. That's what I fell in love with, is the people. The culture. They're just so kind. There was not a single moment where I felt on edge whatsoever.
Well, they might have been swearing to you in Singaporean or in Mandarin or whatever they speak in Vietnamese, but maybe you just didn't know.
No, it's incredible. It's
clean in Singapore, isn't it? It's super clean. I've been a couple of times actually. It's amazing.
Super clean, amazing. So that was really cool. I really like that. It was it was an amazing experience from start to end, and I absolutely loved it. And I've already said to my wife's 50 next year. I'm not sure I should say that on air, but she is. And we're talking about special holidays and stuff, and she was talking about the Caribbean and stuff. And I said, you know what? Can't we go back to the Far East?
Go east.
Yeah,
amazing,
honestly, it is amazing.
Better value as well. Well, places like Vietnam and Thailand, you get good value compared to the West. And Singapore is expensive, Singapore, but it's super clean. As you say, it's modern. They're so far ahead, in honesty. Places like Japan and stuff, the whole society seems further ahead than the West.
On the last day, Nikki wanted a pool day, round the pool relaxing. So my son and I get a bit bored of that, so we went off and we explored Singapore. Anyway, boys being boys, we ended up in the massage chairs in the shopping mall.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah,
Good.
chairs.
Right, got it.
Then went into one of the shops and, I'm sat in there enjoying it. I said, can my son have a go? Yeah. So my son and I are at the back of the shop having a massage in his chair for about half an hour. And basically come back, went to the Ideal Home Exhibition and bought a chair. So I now have a massage chair, which is in the Strait of Hormuz at the moment, but apparently we'll be here in about 3 weeks.
I see. I had to ship it back. Brilliant. You'll have to put a link to that in the show notes, because I've been looking at those, and you think, where would I put it? They're massive, aren't they? Some of these massage chairs.
They are big. I can't wait for it to come. It was such an amazing experience.
Very good.
And this weekend is my birthday, so it's my birthday on Saturday. So I've got a big.
I totally knew that. Let me just make it.
Yeah, I can tell. I know you knew that. It's on the forefront of your mind. Look at making a note quickly.
Quick. Warren's birthday.
Big Chinese meal with all my friends and family and stuff like that on Friday night, and then boozy lunch with Nick on Saturday, and then a family roast on Sunday.
You were 50 last year. This is 51, obviously.
This is 51. Yeah, 74. No, 52, mate. 52.
You look good with that filter on for 51.
Thank you. It's the moisturizer, I think, that actually does it.
Let's move on quickly. What is the core theme, the focal point?
Accumulation to enjoyment, the hardest transition in finance. I'm not sure I like that strategy, because there's an implication that accumulation isn't enjoyment. That makes sense. So it's almost like saying, "Oh, you're accumulating, then you get to have fun." But I think you can have both. I think you can.
No, okay.
I think what we're saying is, the accumulation to the enjoyment of the money, the capital.
Yes. Of course. That's how we'll interpret it.
Yeah. Completely agree. The hardest transition, and if you're a newer financial planner, please don't underestimate the severity of this. Changing people's mindset to actually start enjoying their money.
It's one of the 3 types of clients that we say that we do specialize in working with. One's business owners, one's professionals and successful families. We prefer that term to high net worth. And one is those in or approaching retirement.
What people don't you work with then? Because that's a pretty wide net.
Well, thanks, Warren. I work with people with money. So I work with nice people who want to delegate their assets and their financial, lives to us to a large extent. When I work with clients who want to be told what to do, they're the best ones. But yeah, there's a whole science, if you like, a whole, raft of information, and a lot of people telling you that, this is what retirement looks like, and this is what your second life looks like, and all of that. But you're right, it's hard, definitely, to sort of go from a point of building your pot of money to spending it. And it's a sort of, when you're a younger advisor, and certainly when I was starting out, I definitely had more and more clients that were similar age to me that were building their pots. And you're encouraging them to put money in, pay into ISAs and make use of their tax efficient allowances and top up pensions and all of that. And of course, you build for what is probably 35 to 40 years, your working career, to the point where very typically at 60 or 65, it can be earlier or later, you start to decumulate. It's not a very good word. It's better, let's say you take money out rather than put it in, and you start to utilize your money. It's a transition in terms of mental transition. First of all, to instead of seeing the pot go up, it might go sideways or down. And secondly, this idea of you go from working and in a routine where you're paying off debt, you've got kids, you've got responsibilities, and you get to a certain point where you say, there's got to be something, not necessarily better, but a change. And I'm not suggesting that everyone needs to stop work and retire. We don't like that word, but they get to a point where they do need to realize that if they don't start spending this money and drawing it down and maybe it's winding down, you say, well, what's the alternative? Keep working to 70, 30 to 70 or 80. I mean, it's a personal choice, but yeah, you're right. It's a big shift. It's a mind shift that one has to get over to go from building the pot to spending it.
I often talk to my clients about us being physical beings run by our emotions. And it really is. It's just an emotional transition. It's a belief to try and get our clients to make a change. And I forget the typical phrase. I'm sure you'll remember it about habits, but I sort of say to clients, it's our habits that make us, and it's our habits that break us. And it is. It's like, we are creatures of habit. It doesn't matter how sporadic we think we want to be. We tend to get out the same side of bed every morning. We brush the teeth the same handle, stuff like that. We like doing routine. And then when it comes to a stage, I had a client this morning who just sort of retired. He's like, I sit down in the afternoon, there's nothing to do, and I don't know what to do. I'm like, and his wife said, read a book. He said, well, I don't want to read a book. You know, it's like he used to moan about working. Now he's moaning about free time. And it's this coaching skill set that we have as financial planners, try and get them to live their best life, as you would sort of say.
If you can trigger their imagination, if you can stimulate their thoughts, if you can sort of give them ideas as to, and ask them great questions and say, you know, at this point, would you enjoy, or rather, when would you like work to become optional? And it's a starting point of a discussion. And then the clients might say mid-60s or whatever, I get to this point, and that's what people do, don't they? And I think that I'm a big fan of the Mitch Anthony questions on enough. You know, have you got enough, as in enough money? Will you have have you had enough? Have you had enough of your job? Have you got enough money? Have you got enough to do? It's those sort of three parts of enough. And I think that a lot of clients do get to the point where a lot of people generally get to the point when they think, I just had enough of working. I want to do something else with my time. And you can change jobs, you can work part-time, you can do lots of things, but to make that transition to do something different that you've done for so long, as you said, it's changing that habit, changing that routine. And if that for some means I'm going to go on this enjoyment, I'm going to start spending more time with my friends, my family, and I need to know what it looks like for me in terms of how much I need. Have I got enough money? And will I be, have I got a plan, a strategy in place so that I never run out? And that's what the advisor's giving the client, isn't it? You're giving them peace of mind, money, peace of mind, and you're explaining that and agreeing with them how much they need and demonstrating and showing them what the next 20, 30 years is going to look like.
I think you're absolutely right. And the way we go about it is, first and foremost, make sure they have enough. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's no point inspiring them to live this different life. You think, oh, sorry, I give you those, you can't afford it. Okay, so
at the end of the meeting, meeting is brilliant, isn't it? You do all these things. Oh, you haven't got enough.
Put those things on pause for another 5 or 10 years when you can afford it, sort of thing. So first of all, calculate, make sure they've got enough, however you do that, you know, cash flow modeling or your calculator or whatever. And then once you've got that, you've got to start, like you said, stimulating their imagination, start building pictures. You know, what haven't you yet done that you've always wanted to do? Yeah. You know, what have you put on? And I think having these conversations during their working life, when they've got time, is better than doing it once they're on there. Because it's almost like a deer in the headlights, isn't it? You look at it, it's like, oh my God, I've got to make a decision. I don't know what to do. Whereas when you don't have to make a decision, you're much more likely to. And then it's a case of adding a sense of urgency to it. Because I think as humans, we're natural procrastinators. You know, it's, oh yeah, you know, I'll get around to it. You know, I will do that someday. I will go and do that someday, that sort of thing. But there's two things that we do to try and get clients to realize that life isn't a continuum. So we talk to like people like, you know, precious time's running out. Life isn't going to, you know, we use our hands, we cut this way. But the two analogies which we give is, one is the meter ruler. Okay, so there's a meter ruler. You sort of say that we do it figures. I keep meaning to buy one because I think it would actually be great.
You posted about this recently on LinkedIn. I remember.
Did I?
Oh, yes, that's what you said about Sam Adams. That post, or someone did it for you, but you came up with the idea.
Oh, so, yeah, Sam Adams was around, you know, what you do in life and stuff like that. I get that. That's right.
Okay, go on, meter ruler.
If you didn't see the post on LinkedIn, the meter ruler basically saying, you know, where are you? So you're right, you know, 55. You're over halfway along the trip, and then you kind of put a market around 85 actuarially. Unfortunately, that's our age that we're going to pass away. So you've got this period of time, and say, well, look, you know, it's quite small relative to the rest of the space.
Yeah,
what are you going to do, kind of thing. So that's one analogy that we give, and I must buy a meter ruler to do it. And the second one we do, and I think I actually got this from. I don't think where I did get it from, but a window. You know, this window that we've got in our life is very big. We can get in and out of it all the time. But as time goes on, this window is getting smaller and smaller. It's harder for us to get in and harder to get out. And we have to make the most of life before this window gets too small.
Yeah.
I think it's really training to clients that, you know, life isn't a continuum. Precious time's running out. What haven't you yet done you've always wanted to do?
There's a couple of people, aren't there? I think one of them's is it Mike Legasic? I don't know the guy, but he's written some good books, and he talks about having certain items in your armory, certain you know, props, if you like, in your office. One could be the sort of crystal ball, where you make a joke of it that you can't foresee the future when you're talking about investing. But as you were talking then, I was thinking, okay, yeah, the meter ruler is good. You could visualize, you could buy one. You could have an hourglass. You know, we have a picture of an hourglass on one of our slides that shows that time is running out. And it all sounds sort of quite morose, but the reality is, you're right, we've only got so much time left. And the question, the build up to the point that the client is eventually going to take action is sowing the seed in their mind, so that they have got a plan. They've got something to retire to. They're retiring from their job. We don't like this word retire, but they're moving, they're transitioning. And this term, third act or second life or whatever this party is, as you were talking then about, you get past 50, past halfway, that the assumption is you're going to live to 100. The reality for most is that 40 or 41 is midlife. When you say I'm in a midlife crisis, it's not at 50, it's usually early 40s, because the average age is more like early 80s, 81, 82. And there's this assumption that we're going to live to 100. Maybe we will, based on genes, a bit of luck, scientific advancement. But instead of looking at it negatively and saying, I've only got so much time left and so on, one has to be optimistic and sort of at the same time make the most of every minute and realize that you're making the memories now, and that when they do step away from work, it's about the opportunity cost, the time that they're giving to work. They can spend that time doing something else, spending it with family, doing something they enjoy, going traveling. And you're, as you said, you're ingraining that into their mindset, aren't you? You're moving, helping them psychologically. You're doing two things. You're saying the spreadsheet, all the numbers, the projection says you're fine. The brain is saying be careful, and we're sort of no longer having these theoretical discussions. We're helping them make this big decision of it's time. You told me you want to do it. I'm going to show you how to do it.
Yeah. And I think telling these stories to the client almost in the third person can be very helpful. It's, I'll often say to clients that, John, I love work and I really enjoy it. And I don't see it as a chore and this, that, and that. But the other week when I was on holiday, it just felt different. I was there and I was loose and free and stuff like that. And you start building these emotions, these stories. And I think clients can then step into it and realize it and say, actually, I'm happy. I had a client literally the other week. I'm happy. I don't want to do it. I'm like, I know, but someone's going to spend this money. Who's going to spend it? You or your daughter and stuff. And when I was away, I felt, and you start sort of building these emotions in clients so that they then sort of start thinking, okay. And it's hard really, because if a client is happy, okay, they get up, they're working, they're enjoying their job, whatever it might be, there's an argument to say, why should they change? And I think a lot of the time it's through habits. They're happy in that hemisphere, in that box. It's only when they step out of that box, they realize there is more happiness, more abundance that they can enjoy and do. And it's our job to try and encourage them to experience it, even if it's like stepping their toe into the water.
Yes, because you're a realist, and having with the experience that you have, you've seen clients that are older, not just in your personal life, but in your professional life as well. Those that get to a point where it's obvious that their health is changing, their mindset is changing. They've perhaps got sufficient monies, and as the advisor, you're creating this idea of giving them clients certainty that they won't run out of money. It's giving them permission to spend their money. It's showing them that they've got enough. It's giving them confidence to spend. But as you said, I think that it's more than all of that as well. It's really trying to get them to open up about what do they want to do with the rest of their life? How are they going to live it? Even if you're going to carry on working, let's still spend some of this money. And if you don't want to spend it on you can gift it to your kids, you can gift it away, you can do something. What's the point of having this big pot that you've spent 30, 40 years building if you're not going to do something with it?
Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head there. It's a transition. So it's not a moment, it's not a decision point, it's a transition point. And you go from working to not working, and in not accumulating to decumulating, enjoying the capital. And if I can get a client while they're working, whether that's employed or run their own business, to start enjoying their income and their capital more, it's so much easier when they then do finish to carry on that habit. But if they've given up that guarantee of income and they then start to do it, it's so much harder. So try and encourage your clients to enjoy life and do things they can. And this is the great thing about our profession, that we have to live by example. So we have to be enjoying our lives. So our clients see us say, okay, yeah, you're walking your talk, you're doing what you say you're going to do.
You have to practice what you preach, for sure. Do you know we've got lots of additional presentations that we do with clients. And I think as an advisor, you have to generate and create a branded, or this is what we do, some various branded either stimulation presentations or questions that you're going to ask. But we do it through PowerPoint, right, largely, where we've got one called Time, Health and Money. And it's just visually saying, this is what it means. These are the words that come to mind when I think about time. and the same for health, and the same for money. And then we show them the 3 stages of life. When you're young, you've got lots of time and you've got lots of energy, but you don't have very much money. And then at the far end, of course, you've got time, not as much time left. You've got less energy, and you've still got you've got money. And it's this idea of having what we call a trifecta. You've got enough time, enough health, enough energy, enough money, and to do these things. And it's not just giving permission to spend their money and talking about that phase of it. I really like getting to know what their values are, what they really love to do. And if I can encourage a client to do something different that they've been holding off on for so long, whether it's going to a course in photography or cooking or traveling, whatever it is, why don't you do it? Really pushing the envelope to the point where you're trying to have them live. And we keep saying live your best life, but just do something different. Because, it's always, and when I do this, I'll be happy. Or rather, they usually say, I'll get to that in the future. And the future never comes. I really want to go to Australia. And the client's got enough money. You can see that. You're encouraging them to book the tickets. And other clients, they just keep pushing it off. And they get to a point where they're too old to do it, which saddens me.
And I think the brain craves familiarity or routine.
And certainty.
But it really thrives on variety, on difference, new experiences. And you've got to look at yourself for that. If you have a new holiday, you go to a new location. Great example for me. I always go back to the States because my family connections, everything else, and I really do enjoy it. However, I had a fantastic time in the Far East, because it was a new experience for me. I haven't been for decades, and it was lovely. So it's having these new experiences that really inspire your life. Give it some kind of purpose.
They broaden your horizons, don't they? And I think I feel very privileged that I'm able to take my children to faraway places, to lots of different places in the world, because it's helping them see the world through a different lens. And this transition, this is relevant. Because one of the things that I need that our listeners to get across is that when you transition from working to not working, or earning and saving to spending, it's a sort of, we talked about an identity shift there, but it's also, one has to have a sense of identity that they're more than just their job, that they've got a purpose, that they feel safe and they feel confident in their own skin to do something else, that they're not defined by, oh, look, I'm a managing director of a big firm earning X amount, and I've got all this power and I've got all my contacts all at work. And then you're telling me to change. I've got enough money, but I don't want to do that. And so you've got to have them get to a point where it feels right for them, and transitioning especially from a high-powered job when you've got responsibilities and respect from work. It's harder to do, but it just takes a bit longer. It might take 2, 3, 4, 5 years to transition and plan it out so that you can then spend your time doing something else.
I completely agree with that. And the next thing is linking their identity to their net worth or their investment capital. So many times I've had clients say, we'll just spend the growth. We'll just have the growth off it. And I'm like, well, what's wrong with the capital?
To a certain number. We talked about this, didn't you? I've got a certain pot, a number in a pot.
Anchoring to that, let's use round numbers. I retire at $1 million. Don't want to take chunks of money out so it goes below $1 million. That's only 6 digits. It's not 7. Like, that affects your life at all. You have a different experience at a party or on a holiday because you've got a different amount of money in the pension. It's just trying to get them to de-link from both their identity at work, their job title or their income, and their investments. And it's just a tool to help life, go on.
Yeah.
So what I think would be nice is sort of say, you don't have to go sort of too specific, but how would you manage it with a client? I'm a client. I'm coming up to retirement. I'm trying to think for advisors to have a takeaway. What kind of things would you say to the client? It might be repeating what you've said, but you're kind of summarizing it a little bit here, so the advisor can make some notes and try and implement it themselves.
What would I say to them in terms of what? Being able to encourage them to take action.
Yeah, so you've done the calculation, they can afford to retire, but they're not sure, they're sitting on the fence.
Yeah. So the idea of discussing how much is enough is one of the first concepts. So as part of the discussion, if any advisor would start with the full financial modelling, what assets and expenditure have I got, what income and liabilities have I got, or what does the future looks like, and we do the projections to show that with the assets they've got, this is the income they're going to get. And I always separate the two. This is what I think the income is going to be from whatever DB scheme and state pension you get to withdrawals from ISAs, GIA, pension bond. This is what it's going to look like. on a net basis in today's term. And I get to the point where clients earning X amount now, let's say it's 5,000 a month, for example, net of tax. When they get to a point in the future, pensions, mortgages paid off, kids have left the nest. How much do they need? Let's say it's 3,000, or just for easy maths, 3,333, which happens to be 40,000 a year.
Oh, okay.
So if they need 40,000 a year, that happens to be net 4% of £1 million. So if I'm going to show them that they've got enough and what that looks like, and with this life, if you happen to have another 100 or 200,000 over here in cash, this pot over here is for capital expenses like holidays and emergency monies and sort of known capital expenses. And then over here we've got our income. So we've got enough to live on and we've got enough to have fun with. And as the capital pot, the cash pot drops, we might top it up sporadically throughout. So we get to the point where we've stress tested it. We've talked about market falls, inflation shocks, longevity risk, all of that. Once we've done that and we've accepted it's enough, what I'm also doing with the client is marrying up their values and their goals, their objectives in this new phase of life with what income they can afford to do and what it's going to look like, and creating a new routine for the client, a sort of Monday to Friday, January to December. Where are we going to go? What are we going to do every day? What's the reason for getting out of bed? The whole raison d'etre, ikigai, the meaning of it, is having a purpose and a meaning to sustain your life and have fun. And so for me, I'm very passionate about this because it's probably considerably harder, in all honesty, to do what we're saying here and talk to the client about all of these things for the rest of their life, which incorporate downsizing, health considerations, future income they're going to get, giving money to kids, inheritance tax planning. There's so much to go on, but you just do a bit at a time. You do one step at a time, and then you come back to all of the other phases later on. But and I think that it's sort of the easiest part of finance in some ways is just encouraging putting money in with younger people. They got a mortgage. Okay, there's that. We need to top up your ISA, top up your pension, have a bit of protection. Honestly, the accumulation phase from finance is relatively easy. It's considerably harder, the transition from working to not working, as we're saying here, and all the things that come of that, especially when the client's got more assets.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with the encouraging a client to think of some kind of routine for their life, the next phase, not just sort of getting up at any time doing it. It's okay for a short period, but I think give them some sort of purpose. And I definitely would get them to start thinking about things they've always wanted to do and never done before, and start building pictures up in their mind and getting them sort of excited about things. And then talking about them that, hey, precious time's running out. Okay, you're 60 now. 25 years left. That sounds a long time, but let's face it, the last sort of 5 or 10 years aren't the best 5 or 10 years. So let's try and front end load it also.
Do you know that there's a concept of time where younger people, especially those, this is scientific if you like, those that are not as experienced, let's say that they're sub 20 years old, so they're young adults or young children, their concept of time is different to adults living in a certain routine. And although there's the same 24 hours in a day, I saw this in some LinkedIn or some Instagram post, and it resonated with me because I thought when I was a kid in 12, 13 in summer holidays, you're off for 10 weeks. It feels like 10 months. The days are long because you're experiencing new things, you're playing, you're learning new things all the time. Whereas adults, and especially retirees, a lot of them are focused on a certain routine, get up, go for a walk, have lunch, go to watch TV, go to bed. I'm not saying everyone does that, but when the routine is exactly the same, the time seems to pass quicker. And the way to make things more interesting and to sort of elongate time is to jazz it up a bit, try new things, really step out of your comfort zone, meet new people, go to new shows. And the more that we can encourage clients to do that, not only will they be happier, but it'll feel like we're giving them the benefit of time. You're giving them real peace of mind. We're not just guessing; we're engineering peace of mind for the client.
Yeah.
Do you like that?
No, I do. Yeah, no, I completely agree with it. Yeah, no, that's good. Anything else you want to say on the?
Well, I do, because I want to say about the 4 stages of retirement. I'm going to include in the show notes 2 things for our listeners. But I know we don't put a huge amount of stuff in the show notes. We sort of have a chat about it. But one is the 12 questions. It's a very short 2-page PDF that I'll put in there. And these are 12 questions that I ask my clients, and I don't necessarily ask them and then wait for a response. They're largely rhetorical, but it's questions like, what have you always wanted to do but you haven't done yet? What skills would you like to learn? What places would you like to go? That sort of a thing. So I think that's going to give a little bit of meat on the bone and encouragement to anybody listening who's an advisor. The second thing is a link that I really like from Professor Riley Moyles. Riley Moyles. He's about 70 odd. He's American, but he's done a video called "The 4 Phases of Retirement," and I'll put the link in the show notes. But in brief, the 4 phases are: this is where you stop work, you retire, and you go into phase 1, vacation phase. It's all exciting, it's freedom, it's novelty. The second phase is the loss phase. You feel like your identity is challenged. You've got this adjustment. The third is trial and error, and you experiment with purpose and all the things you're going to do. And then the final phase to get to a point of stability is called the stability phase, where you've got a rhythm, you've got meaning, you've got fulfillment. And it's a brilliant video. It's a TED Talk, and it's emotional, the whole journey. And you do find people that have stopped work that are super happy. Have you seen the U-bend of happiness? It's called the U-shape of happiness, although it's been questioned now. Kids, when they're young, they're happy. You get down into middle age, 20s, 30s, 40s, you're not as happy because you've got a mortgage, you've got a job, you've got to deal with shouty kids sometimes. And then you get to your 60s when you've retired, and then you're super happy again. And you do get retirees that are just confused, and you get others that are into the flow of it, into the rhythm of it, and they've never been happier. And I want my clients to be in that phase, if you like, so they've found themselves again.
Yeah, I like that. I'll look forward to that video. I'll watch that myself. I've not seen it.
Good.
So, should we call that a wrap for the main focal point?
For the main focal point, yes.
Yeah, is there any Q&A for us today?
Of course I have. Got loads of Q&A.
You've got loads, have you? Go on.
I've got too many.
Why don't you start one?
One I put in a post recently, a LinkedIn post, which I liked. It was a picture of myself and my wife Alison at a coffee place, and it wasn't too staged. I just did a selfie, the two of us, but I thought it was a useful video, and I put a little post about enough is a decision, it's not a number. And for me, it resonated, and I got quite a lot of, a couple of thousand clicks on it, whatever. I thought, oh, great, pat on the back, well done, Paul, you wrote a good post. No, I was actually thinking, I wanted people to know this, because if you've got to be satisfied with your life, financially, emotionally, intellectually, psychologically, all of that. You've got to be happy, and everyone strives for happiness. We talk about that, but we as advisors will try to get to a client to accept what they've got, what position they're in, and the fact that enough is enough. I could have just said the quote, could I, and left it at that.
No. How interesting is this? A quote that I wrote down was, real abundance isn't a bigger number. It's the moment you realize you already have enough.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So I got a couple of others. The purpose of wealth is freedom, not accumulation.
Who said that?
I don't know, actually. That one didn't come up as to the person who said it. But I've got one here who, when we talk about enough, both from Epictetus and Seneca, obviously Stoic philosophers. I like that. And Epictetus said, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. I always throw that one in with clients. And Seneca, it's not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. Yeah,
true. I get that. Okay, so I've got a couple for you.
Go on.
He who knows he has enough is rich.
Yeah, good.
Tao Te Ching. And then the sage does not accumulate for himself. The more that he gives to others, the more that he has himself.
Oh, we've come up with some clangers here, haven't we?
Yeah, done good one today. So,
money is a tool. Used well, it builds a life. Used poorly, it builds anxiety.
Yeah, and that's so true. That's so true. The more money you have, the more problems you can have too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely. Okay, let's call that a wrap for today. Thank you for joining us on today's podcast. If you've liked the show, please like and share, and let us know what future topics you'd like us to cover. Have a good one. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Take care now. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Finance Geeks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. Drop your comments and questions on YouTube, and be sure to follow us on social media. Join us next time for more insights to boost your financial planning game.